All right, everybody, welcome back to another Dr. Bradley Campbell Live. We got Scott, one of the co-founders of Met Naturals, coming on today, and happy to help educate y'all. We will save this live afterwards. And hello, Board Betty. What's up, Ziggy Bliss? Hello, Vintage Lovin' Mama. What's up, Aiden Jones? Bianca. Hello, hello, hello. Ahmad, JMV, Jules. Hope everyone's having a good evening. So tonight, I am talking to one of the only, I would say, like more transparent companies out there. There are a ton of CBD, hemp, THC companies. There are many states like Illinois, where I live, that have legalized cannabis or marijuana. And cannabis is the more medically approved name. But hemp products, cannabis products are kind of like still an up and coming thing. And there are so many companies out there. So as a practitioner, it's been hard for me to know. A couple years back, every single supplement company was hopping on the cannabis bandwagon, and a lot of them fell off because a lot of the products did not work. There were very few that actually were getting clinical benefits that people were benefiting from. And this is one of the companies that I've tried personally that has actually had quite a significant benefit for me and patients and other members and followers that I have who have been really liking their products quite a lot. So excited to bring on Met Naturals, Scott. Let's see. Oh, he did request. Cool. Let me question box below, and we'll go through, ask some questions about hemp and CBD products and what they're all about. What's up, PK? Hello, Deanie. Hey, Scott.
Hey, how are you?
Great. How are you doing?
Doing really good, thanks.
Doing good. But thanks for coming on this live, talking about your company and stuff. I really appreciate you spending some of your quality time with us.
You bet. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. So, yeah, I don't know if you can give the background. You'll be able to tell a story a lot better, just like the story behind Met Naturals before you dive into the nitty gritty of like what CBD is, what the benefits are, who should take it, why, etc. I'd love to know like what the story of Met's is for people to retell that and kind of like go through why you helped make all of this.
Yeah, thanks so much for letting us tell our story. For us, it all kind of started in 2018 when the Farm Bill passed, and we were brought the opportunity. We're a couple of farm boys from Idaho, and the opportunity came up to grow the plant. And my business partner, Mark, he actually married the farmer's daughter. And so we have access to about 4,400 acres. I'd love to have you come, by the way, if you ever get a chance.
Yeah.
But it's a fantastic rotational crop, which means it's going to regenerate the soil. And we don't use any herbicides, fungicides, pesticides, or insecticides on the farm. So it gives the true breadth and depth of the soil, meaning you're going to have all your terpenes, you're going to have all of your flavonoids, and the product is going to grow better because it utilizes more of the plant than like when you were introducing it. There's a lot of companies that just isolate that one cannabis oil and then utilize that in their products. Well, you're missing 113 other compounds. And so when we looked at both the legalization and then the way that the industry was doing it, we really felt very confident about providing a better product.
Got it. I didn't know there were 113 other compounds. That's nuts.
Yeah.
And that's
It's a very, very, very broad plant as far as like what it has the capacity to do. And research is showing that the certain compounds have reference to very specific things in the body. Like CBG is great for respiratory and cytokines. So that's just one example.
got it. I still see a lot of followers and patients who think that CBD products are the same as smoking a joint. Like they grew up in the 60s and 70s, and they're like, oh, what's the difference? Like, am I going to get high? Can I take it before work? Like, can you talk about some of how it's totally different, I guess, or talk about the differences?
Yeah, you bet. So 2,000 years ago, there was a very distinct split between the family, meaning they were probably closer back in the day, where the two plants really grew within each other. or among each other within a field. But what's happened over the last 2,000 years is that THC has become very much a specific type of genetic that is, and it always has been, psychoactive. But it's bred specifically to have more of a high, whereas hemp is very much a product that has levels of your cannabinoids that are higher than your THC. And so there's more of the therapeutic. And also from hemp, you're getting more of your products like wood and cement and textiles, because the hemp is very versatile in how it grows, but it doesn't grow high levels of THC. And so, again, if you go back to that 2,000 years and that split, genetically, the strains are different, the compounds that they grow are very different, and as long as you are extracting from a hemp plant, there's very low likelihood that you would get high from the psychoactive approach of THC, because it just, legally, it has to be under 0.3%.
Got it. To me, it's kind of like the nightshade family of veggies. Like you're comparing like potatoes to eggplants. It's like they might be the same family, but like totally different taste, totally different effect on you. You know,
Yeah,
you wouldn't
very,
make,
very good way to say that.
yeah, you're not gonna make like eggplant French fries. I don't think that would do too well at McDonald's. But um, so awesome. So I guess the question then is like, if there are 113 different compounds, how do you figure out which ones are like the best, or do you go with nature? Like, how do you even decide which plants or which, like, how to make your product, I guess, from all of that? Like,
Yeah,
how do you go
very
from
good.
taking the raw material to actually making like effective products?
Yeah, very good question. So for us, it was trial and error. That first year, we grew 500 acres and we grew multiple varieties. And just like you're asking the question, we really wanted to make sure that we had the best range of product, meaning that there was a strong major cannabinoid, which again, we're growing CBD, but that there was minor cannabinoids that were present, because that range will give people more feel, more function, and capability from the product. So we grew Bubba Kush, we grew berry, cherry wine, we grew Trump, Obama. There's the names of the strains themselves are quite humorous, but we decided to go with Bubba Kush just because it had a very nice woody, um, like flavonoid taste to it, and the terpenes were really strong. And when we had done some early research, terpenes are actually the binding agents that help CBD and delivery, but they're also great for protecting against oxidative damage. And so we were thinking, okay, how do we make the best product? And for us, it was having a cannabinoid with a lot of range to it, or a lot of minor cannabinoids in it.
Got it. Very, very cool. Um, so it really has taken quite some time to like optimize it. Is there anything
Yeah.
that you're working on next?
Yeah, we grew a compound or a cannabinoid plant called Eva's Gift, and it's a higher compound in CBG. And that range, again, if we're looking at like cytokine inflammation and we're looking at what cytokines mean for the body, they're little proteins that enhance everything within the respiratory system and the adoption of reception. And so when we did our human peripheral study, it was on cytokine inflammation. And what we want to do is we want to provide people, again, a consistent product that's going to help them when it comes to flu season. So currently it's our immunity gummies, but we pair that CBG, CBD, and then elderberry. And it's a really great product for protecting against sickness, cold, flu, things like that. And so within the CBD space, that's probably the most recent strain that we're growing. We're also testing a different type of a grow, where most farmers will put them at 44 inches on center, the rows, and we put them at 21 inches per center. And what that does for us is it allows us to grow a tighter canvas of product, but then we still get the long stems. So if we wanted to sell them to textiles or to wood products or any like building materials, we can still do that. And then at the top, the plant is still flowering out. So you still get your colas, your leaves, and that's where we're extracting the oils from. So it's a diversity or diverse way of looking at the plant and getting multiple functions out of it.
Got it. Super cool. So as far as the organic part, like what actually, I know you said you can't spray stuff on your farm, but someone was also asking the question of, is there a notion of certified organic at your farm, or is that not allowed federally because it's not like a food? Or what's the state regulation like by you?
Yeah, a great question, and I would tell people that organic is great. It's also a distinction that you pay for. And so when there is a certified organic product, I would tell you that the majority of the time it's really a great product. But also beware that some organic products, when you get that certification, you can still use omni-channel pesticides. And so for us, we've just always decided to be regenerative, where we're looking at the soil and letting the soil predict or tell us what nutrition needs to be in the soil or
Hmm.
put back into the soil. So we'll follow like a cornfield with hemp. And where we do that crop rotation, the amazing thing about the hemp plant is it puts more nutrients back into the ground than it takes. And so we're looking at pH balance. We're testing to the billionth particle because we don't want any heavy metals. Really, anything that the hemp plant is planted in as far as soil is going to suck up everything in the ground. And so I've seen full panel tests that are corn that you'll see different type of like chemical applications, and then you'll see a hemp and you're going to see a whole range more than what appeared with the corn. And it's a crazy scenario, but for us, we've just decided that we're going to utilize either organic or conventional ground, but we're testing based on the soil and the soil continuity according to our products.
Got it. Because I think your website says it's like an organic hemp product, but it doesn't usually say organic on the bottle. Or the Instagram says it's like organic, but it's really kind of like
Yeah.
regenerative and organic. But oh yeah, the bottle says organic hemp, but it's like a different than like the certification of organic you have to pay more for.
Yeah, so USDA certification, we don't pursue that. Some of the
Mhm.
crops on the farm do, like their onions and their watermelon, but for the hemp, it's just not something that we're willing to do at this point.
Yeah. What was the term you said? There's like an organic, basically organic approved pesticides too.
Yeah, it's called omni-channel.
Yeah, that.
So
What's that?
yeah, so it's just an approved certification. Once you receive that certification, there's a whole list of insecticides, herbicides, pesticides that you can use as treatment on the farm that fall in range with the USDA's certification of organic. And so I would just tell people, like, honestly, organic is a very good thing, but just to understand that sometimes organic does mean that you can still treat it with certain products. And so regenerative, if you can get it, is a better scenario.
Got it. That's cool. But like kind of scary for a lot of people too, because they're like, well, but I buy organic food. What do you mean like omni powerful pesticides? Like what's going on? But I get it. I've heard that from other farmers nearby. I have one patient that's an apple farmer,
Uh-huh.
and they said like yeah they do as much as they can like regenerative, but they're like we have to use some sort of pesticide or else like we risk all our crops. So it's like a
Yep.
they're learning more regenerative practices because apparent had on my podcast a couple years ago a farmer who does regenerative ag and he teaches other farmers how to do regenerative agriculture. He's got a business doing that, and it was really fascinating to hear him basically talk about how you can um, avoid pesticide exposure or like even the need for them if you actually learn how to farm like correctly or differently.
Yeah, you're right on. I mean, when you come to the farm, you're going to see that we have like a weed cover in between the rows. And it's just because weeds are not necessarily a bad thing. They can take away like nutrients from plants at times, depending upon what weeds you're going to have within your field. But ultimately, we're not spraying anything on these plants, and we'll go through and we'll pick weeds. I mean, again, some of these seedlings, they'll switch over or they'll herm out, is what it's called. And a female can become a male, male can become a female. And we don't want any males in our field because they just basically pollinate the field and it seeds out the field. And so we're walking the fields every single day, pulling out the males, putting them in bags, and then taking them to the end of the row and then disposing of them.
Got it. What's so bad about the pollinating? Like, what happens if that happens?
Yeah, so once the plant starts to be pollinated, it will become a seeded out plant, meaning it's not going to have the colas with the essential oils in the leaves in the plant or the leaves in the cola. What it does is it just seeds out at the cola level, and then what you have is you don't have the essential oils. You just have a bunch of seeds that you can take and you can propagate and utilize in another year. But if they seed out, you've lost that field or you've lost those
Interesting.
plants.
Interesting. So you kind of need like virgin plants or something in a way.
Yeah,
It's only thing I
pretty
can try to
much.
think of like a non-farmer city boy kind of version of what you're saying. It's like, well,
Yeah, pretty
keep
much.
the males like away. Well, my aunt used to breed mice,
Uh-huh.
and she would sell them to the pet stores. But then they started breeding so fast that she couldn't separate the male and the females,
Mhm.
and she had hundreds of mice in her house, like running around in different rooms and stuff. She was trying to like separate. She eventually figured it out, but it was a rough go for a while. So I imagine you probably have to stay on top of the plants. I don't know how fast they grow, but
Yeah. Once they get out of the ground, they're pretty quick, honestly. So we'll walk the fields every day. And a lot of people don't realize that. Like to have a successful crop, it's generally 120 days, but you're going to plan on walking your fields for about half that.
got it.
So 60, 65 days out of the year, you're going to be walking it to make sure that you don't have any irregularities. So.
Got it. Okay. And I was looking at your Instagram a little bit earlier, and they're talking about how you would start slow. So, like for people who have never done CBD, they probably don't know what a normal dose is. But can you go over like normal dosage, or how slow do you start? Like, do you start with like one drop of the tincture, or like a quarter gummy, or like how do you go about that process?
Yeah. I tell everybody, even if they're experienced CBD users, to start low and slow is kind of our mantra because you're getting more of a range of products. And it's our hypothesis, Dr. Campbell, that these different strains and these different compounds, they mean something different to each of us. So we're all bio-individual. And one of the reasons that we're so very interested in the DNA testing is one, we learn how to metabolize or how a person metabolizes their CBD. We also learn how what their chronotype is, and then also what their predisposition is to stress and to pain and all of these things that I think sometimes people don't know going into what CBD can do for me. And so we tell people to start at about 0.25 if you're looking for the droppers. There's 1 milliliter is your full dropper or your full tincture. Whereas you can start with a quarter and then every 20 minutes, kind of just see how you feel. And your desired outcome might be, I just want to be totally relaxed. And some people might be thinking, I want to be able to function, but to be able to take that edge off. And so it's different for each person. But I will tell you this, the gel caps that we have, sleep gels and the daily gels, they're going to metabolize slower and they're not going to be so instant because they're not hitting that mucous membrane or the buckler that's pulling them into the CB1, CB2 receptors. So if you want fast acting, it would be the tincture or the gummy. If you want a slower experience, kind of delayed throughout the day, that's going to be your soft gels or your sleep gels.
Got it. Cool. So good to know. I didn't know that. That's helpful. I know we also were using one of the ones, this one here. It's the Pets bacon version. But my main question is, can I take this? Because that sounds tasty.
It's so good.
Okay, I was
I'm
like,
glad you brought that up.
I was like, it has bacon flavor, and it looks like it wouldn't harm me. I was like,
It,
you're not supposed to eat
it
dog
wouldn't.
food, I don't think. But
So the endocannabinoid system is found in all mammals. And so, like our dog Arlo, he's a little bit anxious, especially when we kennel him. And so we just put it over his food. But I've also heard of some of our dog owners, cat owners, utilizing it for hip dysplasia and any type of arthritis. It's great for anybody. But to be honest, I have taken the bacon flavor and put it over my steak.
nice.
So
I just tried it. It's actually pretty good.
it's
Yeah, it's
great.
quite nice. Kind of like coconut oil with bacon. Not bad.
Yeah.
Like bacon grease, I guess. Um, which dogs definitely like. We given it to our dogs, and they definitely will just like eat it right. We like squirt it in our hand, just let them lick our hand, and they love it, which is great. Um, so next question I have is, why do you have some products when people are looking to go with this for other companies? Why do you have some that are broad spectrum and some that are full spectrum, and what's the difference? I know your
Yeah,
page says it, but for people who are listening.
yeah, great question. And so broad, just to be clear for everybody, is without THC, and full spectrum is going to be the entire plant and include trace amounts of THC. And so you've got bus drivers, people who are tested, athletes, government workers who can't have any THC. And until that changes within testing, LabCorp is working on a test to be able to see the difference between marijuana and hemp or CBD. But until that test really becomes popular, there are still certain categories of people that have to avoid THC. The other reality is THC is something that there's about 8% of the population who have a sensitivity to it. So that would look like paranoia, anxiousness. That would look like, hey, I can't control my heart rate, my heartbeat.
Mhm.
Um, from time to time, you have people that are so sensitive they'll end up in the hospital. And so that type of a scenario is not comfortable for people. And
Yeah.
that's where we really recommend the broad spectrum from that point.
Yeah. So have you had any major reactions with your product with like the full spectrum? Because I feel like that's usually when people are like they smoke way too much marijuana versus like a hemp product. But I haven't. Yeah.
Yeah, we've had a couple of people who have one sent a video, which was really funny. She took a bunch of the soft gels, thinking that like, okay, I take 4 Advils, so she took 4 of our soft gels, and she was gone. Like honestly, like she was like all of the behaviors of somebody who is high, that she was having those.
Wow.
And then we had another one that took 2 and had never taken really anything. And she said that she just was feeling so relaxed that she just slept for a long time. But those are the only 2 that I'm aware of
Yeah.
like thousands.
Interesting.
So I think
Yeah,
that's good.
that is good. I mean, it's really, really interesting. I think people often think that supplements or like natural products are not super strong, but they can be super. And they're like, oh, I would pop like 3 of these, or they think they're like food. And sometimes I'll even tell my patients like who don't like taking pills, I'm like, think about it more like how much good food can I get in? But some of the products are really strong, and you can overdose on these things. Do you generally follow like 1 to 2 doses a day, like the bottle says?
Yeah. We're always, again, very much wanting a person to start with something low, mainly because your endocannabinoid system and your level of stress or anxiety or pain, inflammation is going to guide your dosing. We are coming out with a dosing schedule that we've been working on with Dr. Francisco Sidral. But until that comes out and we're happy with it, we just really say, hey, low and slow, 1 gel cap, 1 dropper if you're going to do 1 dropper, because our products are more potent than some of the products that you may have tried. And mainly because we have more of the plant included in every single one of our doses. And so that's where we tell people just be calm and like take your time to find your right dose. But then after that, the dose that you need on a daily basis.
Got it. Very cool. So what are the primary benefits of CBD? You mentioned some with like pain and anxiety and sleep.
Yeah, I would tell you it's like a three-legged stool. So pain and inflammation are incredible. So anybody that has inflammatory pain, tension, any type of pain that's just chronic or constant, our products do very, very well. I had Guillain-Barré when I was 15 years old, and
Wow.
so my myelin sheath was totally wrecked, and my nerves were exposed. My nerves died. Then I had muscle atrophy. So at the age of 15, I was kind of a wreck. But my dad was a physical therapist. He worked with me on a daily basis. We got back to the point where I could be active and mobile. But about 37, 38, when I turned 37, 38, I started getting like neuropathy like you wouldn't believe. Like just the pinching, the tingling, the numbing feeling. And I would be up at night, all night long, like walking around just to try to get my legs back. And so, from me personally, why we started MET, or my why, was very much about giving people their life or activity back, especially when it comes to neuropathy and, feet, hands, because that's where it affected me the worst. But we've also seen it with like gut pain, like those gels. If you take a gel cap, when it digests and fully reaches your stomach, that's where it's going to release those anti-inflammatory properties. And so we've had a lot of success with keeping people's gut health in check. So that's one that I would say is, pain and inflammation topically for, external pain, and then internally through like the soft gels or the sleep gels. And then the second prong or the second stool leg would be your stress and your anxiety. If you think about the sympathetic system that regulates your fight and flight, ultimately, what CBD is very good at is regulating those feelings of like I'm, really stressed or I'm really anxious or I'm really low. It just, if you think about it, it just regulates everything back to
Yeah.
homeostasis. And so CBD is great for homeostasis. And then the third, which isn't necessarily CBD, but CBD is great as a relaxer or great as a neutralizer, is CBN, is one of those compounds that is most associated with sleep, both depth of sleep and REM sleep. And so when you think about those kind of three-legged stool, sleep, inflammation, pain, and stress and anxiety.
Nice. What about the CBG? How is that? If CBN is more for sleep, what does CBG do?
Um, More like an energy or more like a revitalizer
Hmm.
in terms of like taking your cytokines and making them function at their top capacity.
Got it. I also saw the CBC, cannabichromene. Do you know what that one is off the top of your head? It's like a
Yeah,
good
see,
test.
yeah, CBC is also an energy enhancer, and it really kind of depends on whether you get a sativa or indica, the different types. But ultimately, CBG, CBC, CBT kind of fall into that revitalizing, like energizing type of a compound, whereas CBD is going to be more like, hey, let's calm things down, let's like reduce things. But again, when you think about any person's body, it's about getting it to homeostasis. And so sometimes we explain it in like a yin and a yang. THC is going to get you high and put you into a psychoactive state, whereas CBD is the reverse, where it's going to bring you down and equalize you. So I tell people THC and CBD, it's really just a yin and a yang, but a lot of those compounds behave in the same way.
Huh. So is it really, someone was asking, is it really about like pain management or is it healing the root cause of the issues or does it vary?
Yeah, I think it's all about the root cause. I mean, ultimately, we're trying to get to the point of what is causing the stress, what is causing the anxiety. And CBD can do wonders, but your body can do far more. And so, if you get into a routine, your endocannabinoid system will take the lead and give you the homeostasis that I think all of us are looking for. and why we work so hard to find the nutrients that are balanced and work for each body is because we want people to have that homeostasis. Because a sense of being in stress, well, then you got cortisol levels that are raised. You can't sleep, you've got stress, you've got anxiety. And so if we can bring that down and equalize it, same type of a thing with sleep. If you're not sleeping, you're carrying all of that into the next day. You're likely more anxious, you're likely more irritable. And so finding that state is really the endocannabinoid system's job.
Got it. I heard one person say that CBD is a little bit like a nutrient deficiency, like not enough of us have enough kind of in our body, or like, and once you take it, you kind of get like built up. But does it, have you found that kind of either like people take it for X amount of time and then they don't need it anymore? Do you find like they take it and they kind of need to stay on it for a long period of time, or does it vary quite a bit?
Yeah, I've seen both. I mean, ultimately, you've got cannabinoids in a lot of the things we eat, like kale, if you enjoy kale, or carrots, black clover, echinacea. Like some of those already have cannabinoids in them. And so your body really ultimately needs those nutrients because the ECS or endocannabinoid system is central to every system within your body. So you need it, but realize that endocannabinoid means your body is producing cannabinoids internally. But if you don't have that storage, if you don't have enough, like you said, it's nutrient deficient. And then you're going to see things like stress and anxiety pop up, and lack of sleep, and chronic pain, and exercise induced pain, just because your nutrients aren't there to support your body.
Right. Yeah, I think a lot of people don't realize we have this whole quite recently, I guess, in terms of scientific discovery, quite recent endocannabinoid system. Can you talk more about like what that is? People know like, oh, my muscular system, my skeletal system, I know what they know what their bones are from grade school, but they didn't learn in grade school like you have an endocannabinoid system.
Yeah, the ECS, I mean, and I've got this fascinating PowerPoint. So if anybody wants it, just reach out either through our like DM us on Instagram, or ask us to shoot you an email. But it's fascinating, and we put it together with Dr. Francisco Sidral. But it's a report on all the areas that the endocannabinoid system impacts. And so, like, things like, I'll just give you a couple of examples: the peripheral nervous system, the reproductive system, adipose tissue, digestive tract, thymus gland, bone marrow, immune systems. Those things are CB2. So your two main receptors that respond to CBD are CB1 and CB2. So those are CB2. CB1 also is peripheral nervous system, central nervous system, brain and spinal cord, digestive tract, pituitary gland, thyroid gland. And so there's a lot of capacity that the ECS is managing. And again, this report that we put together, Dr. Sidral put together, is fascinating.
Yeah, can't wait to see it. It's like hard to even understand if it's more for some of the medical people on here too. It's like, is it more like a hormone or a protein or a vitamin or a neurotransmitter, like a little bit of everything, you know?
Yeah, and you'll have way more knowledge on that than I will. But what Dr. Sidral said to us is, he said, think about a central, like, hard drive. It's responsible for every function in the computer, but ultimately there's apps and there's programs that are running independent, but they have to rely on some type of a mainframe or some type of a hard drive to be able to call for information.
Got it. Yeah. Yeah, as far, at least the way I learned it, I think is that it's more of like a neurotransmitter type of system. So people are like, but you can't really just supplement serotonin, and 5-HTP is the precursor to serotonin, doesn't really work that well. But the nice thing about CBD is you basically can supplement that. Like if there was like a dopamine pill, I think people would take it.
Yeah.
Or if there's just like pure serotonin that worked, they would take it. The nice thing about CBD is it's not like instant. For some people, they take it and they're like, oh, it doesn't really do that much. Like their vitamin status is good. But for most people, I feel like they take it and they do notice they feel better, or I tell my patients they kind of go from like the adult roller coaster at like Six Flags where they're going like up up and downs, but it's just lessened, or they're not freaking out as much. They're having a better time. But um, it's not as much whiplash from stress. But is there something um, that you notice? I know, like, you have some testimonials about people with anxiety. I hear a lot of people with anxiety do better on CBD. But is there something that people sort of feel, especially with the tinctures, where they say like you feel it right away? What's the most common feedback you tend to get from that type
Yeah.
of stuff?
A lot of people, we start with our topicals just because we want them to be able to feel it in a variety of ways. So we learned this from one of our early practitioners, but they said, hey, you have over 200 zones on the bottoms of your feet, and it's a receptor highway. And so try your recovery products on the feet. And we were getting some of the most incredible stories from, hey, I felt the full entourage effect, to I felt no pain from my neuropathy, I felt no pain from shingles. Whatever the symptomatic effects were, we were seeing people not have the pain, not have the inflammation. So I'd tell you, we've had really good effects with the recovery cream, also in on the stomach or around the belly button, in the armpits for anybody that's going through like kind of a sickness or cold, that they just want to like clear out and clean out the lymphatic system.
Yeah.
And then neck, try it in a massage, try it when you're just trying to relax for the night. Back of the neck is really, really effective. And then also the temples on either side and across your head if you've got a headache or a migraine.
Very cool. Do you like the more of the cream then versus the roll-on stick?
I like the cream because it's stronger, but there's a lot of people who prefer the roll-on because they don't have to touch it. Because I've made the mistake of touching the recovery cream and then rubbing my eyes. That's not pleasant. So you'll want to make sure that if you put it on your hands, that you're not touching your eyes or anywhere else that's going to sting. So.
Got it. That makes sense. Yeah, there's one time I did some similar stuff with essential oils when I was making a natural hair gel, or it was not good. Um, or I did it once with peppers too. There's like a hot pepper tasting at an airport, and I was traveling, and I went and like got my friend some hot sauces and touched the hot sauce, and then touched my eye, and
Yep.
whew, it's like red for days. Um, but forget plants have some powerful compounds.
Yes.
Um, okay, let's see. There's some other questions here on Instagram we had. Does CBD tend to cause weight gain? Trying to lose, so wouldn't want it to make me bigger.
Yeah, good question. I think that's a fair question. No, I've seen no research tied to weight gain. I've actually seen the opposite, because if you can reduce the inflammatory properties going on inside of your stomach, you're also going to have a better functioning stomach,
Got it.
better digestion, better respiratory, like all
Yeah,
of those matter.
yeah, I'd agree. This question was, can CBD be taken during the day while working?
Absolutely. That's the full purpose of it, is that you can utilize it during the day
Mhm.
and have a completely functioning day, and not like its counterpart where it kind of knocks you out and you're not able to drive and do things that require cognitive capability. So, yeah, I take CBD every morning.
Got it. Would you say like avoid the sleep one though during the day? Probably
Oh,
take
yeah.
that at night. That was gonna be this, yeah, not that use. If you take the daily, like these immunity gummies or the full spectrum before bed, would it still help with sleep? Just less from like the
Yeah.
sleep specific?
Yeah, funny enough, our immunity gummies, before we had any sleep products, they were really very much used for sleep for a lot of people.
Got it. Very cool. Okay. Yeah, they have the CBG in both of them,
Yep,
looks like.
yep.
I like that the label actually will say, let me show people in here, what's in the product too, if I can get there. So it's nice that it actually will list like how much CBD, how much CBN, the oils in there. Or with the gummies, it also will say CBD, CBG. This is the full spectrum right now, the broad. So it has the Delta 9 THC quantity and the CBC in there, which is really pretty great.
Yeah, the state of Utah requires us to list every cannabinoid above 5% or zero point 0.5 milligrams per gram. And so all of our products are going to really be detailed pretty well. The cool thing that we've released is that DNA kit. And why I bring that up is because it'll give you a sense of your whole supplement stack that you're low on. So when we test chronotype, when we test nutrients in the body, we're looking at what is it going to make that body homeostasis or put it in a homeostasis scenario. And like we've had a lot of our customers who are low in magnesium. And so the recommendation is that they take magnesium, ashwagandha for some, lion's mane for other. There's a whole spectrum of nutrients that I don't think that we get as much as we need to on a day-to-day basis. And our genetic kit does that. It gives us a view into, okay, what was your predispositions and what does your genetic base need? Or again, back to that root cause.
Very cool. Sweet. Also had a question of, would any of the products impact medications?
Yes, and that's a great question. So we looked up Harvard with Penn State, came up with a list of 20 different medications that interact in a negative way. And so, Dr. Campbell, I'll send it to you so that you have that list, and then you can share it with whomever asked that question.
Great. Had a question too. Um, where is it? If someone, wait, where is it? If someone does react poorly to pot, can they, do you think most people could tolerate the low dose of THC in the full spectrum?
I do. Yeah,
Okay.
it's so much of a different experience. I do very much.
Yeah. Great. I would agree with that. I think like you're getting, it's like 1/100th probably or less of the dose of THC.
Yep.
Awesome. Okay. We had another question here on Instagram. Is the sleep formula broad or full spectrum?
Uh, Actually, your code is going to work for everything. And I'll tell you my experience. I sleep better on broad. I take full spectrum all day long. Love full spectrum because I think it gives me this like balanced calm is how I describe it. But when I try to go to sleep at night, I have that balanced focus. And so at night, I just choose a broad spectrum and I'm sleeping far better than I was on the full.
Interesting. Can you say again why you think that is? That's
Yeah,
just
for me, I have to have some level of processing that's going on at night when my body's kind of shutting down for the night, where it's enhancing the THC. And I look at it like, and I've tested it on my watch for about the last 15 months, and it's without fail. If I take full spectrum, I have some type of a focus, and maybe it's just in my mind, but I'm
yeah.
so focused, I'm calm but I'm focused so I don't get into a depth of sleep. Because THC really isn't the compound getting you into depth of sleep and REM sleep, it's the CBN. So the more CBN ratio you can get, the better.
Interesting. Very cool. Um, the blueberry lemon gummies sound interesting too.
Yeah, they're awesome. I generally will either do a stack of a gummy with a gel or just one or the other. But on nights where I just need great sleep, I stack them because I want the gummy to interact and go quickly, whereas I know that the sleep gels are going to be about an hour before I start feeling it.
Got it. Makes sense. That's pretty interesting about the I like that you have the reishi and the sleep gummies. So there's CBD, CBN, reishi, tart cherry, and lemon balm. So you like some melatonin naturally in the tart cherry, probably the lemon balm's calming, and the reishi. People don't realize reishi is really good for staying asleep. I just learned that recently, so I'm still kind of geeking out on that fact. But a lot of people are like, "Oh, I wake up middle of the night." It's like, well, have you tried reishi? It's like a really easy, gentle thing that can help quite a bit.
Yep, very true.
Yeah. Missy N's asking, is met microdosing?
Not yet, but we will. And ultimately, our daily watermelon gummies are our first adaptogenic product. And so you're going to have a balance of reishi, chaga. You're going to have cordyceps. You're also going to have lion's mane and ashwagandha in that one. So that's one of our favorite products when people are looking for mushrooms. Until there's a legal structure, we won't go full into the microdosing side of it. But we very much have a plan to be in that space when there's a clear legalization of it.
Right. Right. Yeah, I wonder, it'd be nice if that got to be federally an option, but we'll see. All right. What about, I had a question here. I've tried CBD for my anxiety and it didn't help. What could be wrong?
I think a lot of things. I mean, some of these are going to be case by case, but I would tell you, like, look at your lifestyle. Are you getting plenty of sunshine? Are you getting plenty of water? Are you getting enough exercise? Those are three things that I tell people. Do a gut check on those to see really if you are or are not getting enough there. And then if you are and there's still a challenge, I always start with the recovery cream because I'm very much responsive to touch. So the rubbing it on my feet, the rubbing it on my neck is just an immediate relaxer. But I also really enjoy the daily gels, and that's what I take every morning. And so as I've built that up in my system, my days are just a little bit more calm, a little bit more regulated, and I don't have the high highs, I don't have the low lows. It's pretty consistent throughout my day to day. And there's a lot of stress in all of our lives, but that's been the thing that I've utilized.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's like you gotta look at the reason of why the anxiety is there, I guess, too. Sometimes it could be like, oh, well, if your child is running around with knives trying to stab you, then like maybe the little anxiety is good. You know, like situationally that could be useful. You don't want to be like just like I'm on my CBD, I'm not caring. Like, oh, I got stabbed, not a big deal. You know, but or they were trying maybe a product that wasn't the best quality.
Yeah.
Could be the case too. The CBD industry is not super, it's like regulated in some ways and also not at the same time. Um,
Well, and you bring up a good point. I would tell people one other differentiating factor for Met Naturals is the way that it's extracted. So think about when it comes out of the field, a lot of farms just throw it in a pile. Well, CBD in a pile, it comes out of the field at about 14% moisture. And so if it just sits there, it will mold. And then you're trying to remediate out that mold and those mold spores. And so people douse it with ethanol, butane, hexane. They throw CO2 on it. And all of those processes are just really clogging up those pores because a plant that's a porous plant or an aromatic plant like hemp, it's going to suck up everything that is in the ground or in the environment. And so I would tell you, like, extraction matters. So we use a hyperbaric chamber, which is just a little bit of heat and negative pressure. And it allows that plant to sweat all of those nutrients, and we capture all of those. And that's why our products are so really well balanced.
got it. Interesting. Cool. Um, Something I would say is like you mentioned going outside in the sun that can't really be understated is like so many people are either like getting light from their phone when they're outside or they're just never outside. But one of my favorite memes of all time is that we're basically just like delicate house plants with complicated emotions walking around in human bodies. It's like you need food, good food, you need water, and you need sunlight. And if you don't get those, you're going to wilt and die. So like you have to get outside for sure.
Yeah.
Um, Pretty wild. All right, we also had a question here. Um, that's not about CBD. Do you have an indica tincture for sleep, or is it all hybrid?
It's all hybrid. Great question.
Yeah, cool. Good to know. Um,
Sorry, my phone was dying.
oh, nice. Gonna go plug it in, or
Yeah.
okay. What do you have for GPA or Wegener's? Um, GPA. It's like an
Maybe
autoimmune vascular condition.
I'm going to have to kick that up to Dr. Sidral.
Yeah.
I don't want to guess what that is, but I'm
Mm.
not familiar. So I'll follow up on that.
Yeah, it's a tough one. It's like a blood vessel inflammatory thing, granulomatosis with polyangiitis. But
Hmm.
yeah, again, you might need to look a little bit deeper into the medical reason, I would say, as my doctor perspective. All right. I think that's most questions. Let me look at if I had any other ones. Um, I guess the question I would have for you too is, um, if people aren't sure where to start, would you start with a tincture or a sleep or whatever you're called to, gummies? Would you start with like a cream or a tincture? Yeah, where would you kind of start if you were to say like you're either where you think people should start or where they typically like to start?
Yeah. It's a little combo of both, to be honest with you. I generally will ask the question, like, how do you prefer to take, like, your current medicine or your current whatever you're trying to
Mm,
solve, whether it be pain, inflammation, whether it be stress and anxiety. A lot of people take them orally, so that's a great place to start. And tinctures, they're great, but if you haven't taken a tincture and suspended the liquid underneath your tongue, sometimes it can be a weird experience for people. And so I just tell them tinctures are great if you're familiar with tinctures under the tongue. The mucous membrane, that's going to be one of the quickest ways into your system. But sometimes if you're a fast metabolizer and you have like that liquid suspension, the bioavailability is going to be immediately there. And some people aren't ready for that. And so again, back to that low and slow, I would say whatever you start with, start slow. And then if you respond better to like touch and massage, maybe you go with the topical. Just be patient with yourself and don't try to get a result after, you know, 10 minutes, 20 minutes and think that if you don't, that it's not going to work. Just give yourself a little bit of time. We give a 30-day back money back guarantee just because it's like use it for the full 30 days and utilize it at different times and at different cadences. And that will give you a good sense of what it is and how to utilize the product. And then you'll settle into what works for you.
got it. Okay. Um, I just had a meme pop in my head while you're giving your response. I don't know if you've ever seen this movie, the A Few Good Men. It
Yeah.
does this. It goes, the truth. You can't handle the truth. It's like I don't know why it's like you want the truth, but like we can't. I'm glad you're able to talk about it because other CBD companies I've heard they're not able to. They were like scared for a long time to sort of talk about some of this stuff, or they have to be very careful like what they say online or not. So it's nice to have more of an open conversation about some of this stuff.
Yeah, well, and I appreciate you allowing us to tell our story and to
Yeah.
share what we've learned because it's a process. And I think at one point we'll know every cannabinoid, what it does for every individual, the bioindividuality of it. Like that's where we're going because we
Yeah.
want this to be utilized in a range of ways for medicinal purposes. But we're not yet there. We just know in general that CBD will help everybody. And it's just finding that right dose, that right product for you.
Yep. I mean, it's pretty cool. What you said earlier too. I want to just like touch one more time is that if you've eaten a carrot in your life, you've taken a CBD product. Or like if you've had
Yep.
some kale chips, or if you've had taken echinacea, which most people on here probably have, it's like you are now a CBD consumer, and you have been for a long time. So it's like you might as well try some different versions of it too.
Yep.
Pretty cool. And thanks for doing the discount code too for next 24 hours. People are listening to this. I'll put in my stories too. The discount code on all the products, I believe, on your website, which is pretty
Yep.
cool. So
Well,
Dr.
thanks for
Fleet.
having us on.
Yeah, thanks for joining. Appreciate So thanks, Scott. And we'll talk to you later.
Okay. Thanks so much. Really appreciate it, Dr. Campbell.
No problem. See ya.
Okay. See ya.